A few days ago, I had just gotten a new TV and felt like watching an anime, but I didn't know what to watch. That's when I fell upon the biggest surprise in years, a show by the name of Wistoria. A show that feels incredibly similar to Harry Potter. It's so similar, in fact, that it must have been inspiration for the show. But what makes this show feel so similar? Is it the art direction, the world, the characters, the objectives? Just sit back and relax while I give you an overview of the show, spoiler free, so you can decide whether or not you want to watch it. Starting with the most distinctive thing in any anime, the art direction. Wistoria Wand and Sword is a gorgeous anime. Though it stumbles sometimes in its beauty, it's quite the standout in every other regard. But that's not all. The art direction for the show feels like a combination of two things: old 1990s anime and medieval British architecture. I'm not skilled enough in anime for me to look at this image and be able to instantly discern why my brain thought this anime was really old, but there is something about the characters that make them feel like they're straight out of my childhood. Maybe it's the commonly sharp angles found on the characters that make me think of something like Outlaw Star and Vash the Stampede. Maybe it's the attire which immediately make me think of mech anime like Code Geass. Or maybe I'm the only person in the world that thinks this. I would love to know from the artists out there if I'm going crazy or if this take holds some water. Moving over to the medieval British architecture, it just kinda makes sense when you think about their inspiration. Harry Potter had a very similar inspiration during the movie's production. This also is the reason why most magic schools use similar architecture. It's because they are pulling from their most successful medium. Let's move over to the show's story. This section in a nutshell is, do you like Mashal but wanted it to be more serious? That's right, the show is almost one for one Mashal but done with an absolute straight face. It almost feels weird at first watching this show after coming off of Mashal, but that feeling quickly fades away. Moving back over to the characters, one overlapping trope I found with a few of the female characters is how closely their designs resemble one another. This is especially difficult for me because of how bad I am at remembering names. If characters look alike, then I'm going to get confused on who's who. At some points in the show, I spend a few seconds trying to register which character is on screen, which is something I should never have to actively think about. Luckily, this isn't for every character and will hopefully be a temporary issue. For example, the male characters are all distinct and stand out. This is mostly due to their hair color, but even looking past that, they still have unique enough faces and hairstyles for me to never get tripped up. Something I would like to talk about now is the world's lore. We aren't done talking about the art, but the anime does something very interesting that I can't resist talking about. Once again, I won't spoil any important details, only the overall purpose for the show's existence, the goal of the main character, as you will. Will Surfort and his childhood friend Elfaria both dreamed of becoming Magiavander, the title given to the 5 most powerful mages. They made a promise to one day watch the sunset together as Magiavander. While Elfaria was a prodigy, Will was gifted with 0 magical ability. The story follows Will trying everything in his ability to climb the tower in order to fulfill their dream. What surprised me was the story's main pull wasn't only about becoming Hokage, but had a secondary reason tied to it all along. That gives the story more volume to work with. Whenever they bring up Elfaria, it not only shows what a Magiavander is capable of, but it also builds out the character, reinforces Will Surfort's character, and even gives us a deeper understanding of the limitations behind this magic system. Not only does it do all of those things combined, but it also makes Elfaria into the legendary mage. Someone so unbelievably powerful she's almost on par with a mythological creature. But when we actually get to see her character in action, her personality contrasts that idea. She's such a good character for motivating the protagonist, I couldn't have asked for any other. Going back to the lore of the world, the lore drop in episode 1 was so freaking good. I'm going to talk about it real quick. If you don't want to know, skip ahead about 10 seconds. The original Magiavander combined their magic to raise the sky. You can even see magic circles in the sky when they zoom into it. I just thought that was such a cool concept. When they first talked about it, I thought it was just a legend or figure of speech. But no, they literally just did it. Let's move over to Will Surfort next. His design is great and a real standout amongst your average protagonist, but not as strong as the mythological Elfaria. He's a pretty cookie-cutter protagonist compared to the other anime out there, but he gets the job done. A good addition to his character is his familiar Kiki, and you have to admit giving him a black cat named Kiki is directly inspired by Kiki's delivery service. I don't want to get too in-depth with Will's relationship with each of his classmates, but I will talk about one in particular. Scion Ulster is Will's classmate and bully. He picks on Will for the obvious reason, but there is actually more to this. Think of Bakugo and Deku's relationship from My Hero, but with a slight twist. I really wish I could talk more about this, but I'd rather save this conversation for a different time. It also goes a bit into spoiler territory. Moving back to the animation for one last time, let's talk about something important: shot composition. If you don't know what this is, let me give you a quick definition. Shot composition is the way elements in a scene is placed in the camera's frame. A boring shot composition, for example, is the classic over-shoulder position, where one character talks, then it cuts, flips the camera, and the other character talks. The opposite of bad composition is Wistoria. Wistoria has the best shot composition I've ever seen in an anime. It's absolutely gorgeous, making me feel like I'm no longer watching a series. I'm watching a movie made by film enthusiasts. Even during flashbacks, they add letterboxing, giving the movie feel even more validity. On top of all the good I've already said, the music feels perfect for the setting. The soundtrack isn't the best thing I've ever heard, but the songs do hype up important scenes and sound great. The sound effects are also on par with the music. It isn't Fire Force levels of raw, unadulterated ear euphoria, but it isn't a slouch either. The fight scenes, on the other hand, are both the strongest and weakest parts of the show. The actual animation in these scenes are extremely solid. Some even have some beautiful color schemes going for them. Others have impactful moments enhanced because of the narrative that brings them to this very moment. Though each are strong because of their own reasons, they all fall one step short from being perfect. The reason behind this misstep is a combination of two things, but I want to focus only on one. Their use of CGI isn't at an acceptable level. Take this short instance for example. You can see that the CGI used here isn't egregious. It's not the amount of CGI that's the problem. It is its implementation that is the problem. If I had to implement CGI into my show, then this would be one of the first places I'd shoot for. It's solely in the background and doesn't affect the overall fight sequence too harshly. But it is not moving naturally with other elements in the scene to the point that it starts to take me out of the encounter. What do I mean by this? Well, if I were to show you this small clip, it could explain everything. The movements of the camera versus the movements of the character versus the movements of the ground are conflicting with one another. It became such a mangled mess that this one moment completely breaks my immersion whenever it was doing such a good job seconds prior. For a further breakdown of not only this scene but this entire fight, I plan on making a video about it in the next couple of days, so make sure to subscribe for that. Other than that, and some of the female characters looking too similar, this show is becoming the dark horse of the year. If what I'm saying piques your interest at all, give it a watch. I promise you it will leave you pleasantly surprised. Other than that, thank you guys for coming and watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and as always, Johnny.